We'll start. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. Thank you so much, Gayatri ma'am, to come here and to join with us. Today, Brain Bristles presents a webinar on the adults around the child, the architecture of belonging, with Mrs. Gayatri Vathsan. Thank you so much for joining in again. So, a little bit about me. My name is Alicia, and I am the team lead of Brain Bristles. And my work goes around with our lovely team of social workers. So, what we do is our social workers are placed at inclusive mainstream low income schools, and there they go every day to work just to provide that inclusive education for kids on the spectrum, and so that to make sure that they're always having the sense of belonging part of our one another classrooms. So yeah, so going deep dive into you, ma'am, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do? Gayatri ma'am, I
Can you
think
see me? Can you hear
now I
me?
can see you. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
wonderful.
Can you see me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
yes. The
Yes,
lights of a spotty network.
exactly.
So, yeah, I think you were asking me to introduce myself, to talk a little
Yes.
bit about me.
Talk a little bit about
Okay.
yourself and the work that you've
Mm,
done so far.
Okay. So, I'm Gayatri. I'm Krishna's mother, and that's the first sentence of my introduction to anybody these days. And before I was Krishna's mother, I am a postdoc in physics. I graduated from IIT Madras, thought about research, left it, thought about the civil services, left that, became a copy editor, and then finally, I think the last 10 years of my career, I was an instructional designer. I was designing corporate training, corporate learning, got pregnant, took a maternity break because, my child deserves my time till at least he or she starts school. And then Krishna's diagnosis came in when he was just short of 4 years. So that was, something that really threw all of us because till four, he presented almost as a neurotypical. So it was like he was like any other, bright, bubbly toddler who was, giggling, laughing, playing, talking, communicating,
Right.
demanding, everything, nothing out of the ordinary. And then, so why did we go in for a diagnosis? His first week at school uncovered a lot of issues that we didn't even know existed. That first week was extremely traumatic for him, and I was not even aware of that trauma part of it because he did not present any of the issues that the school allegedly talked about, at the end of the week.
Right.
So by the end of the week, how did I know? Because that day, this little kid comes out of class, his face is all muddy, dirty, tear-stained, swollen with crying. He comes running to me, clutches me, climbs on top of me, and refuses to, even pull his face away from my neck. And I was like, "Ma'am, what happened?" I was asking his class teacher. So she showed me a short video that they had taken in the class where Krishna wanted to leave the classroom and it was not time yet to leave, so they locked the door, and that led to his first meltdown. So there's this kid standing in front of an entire silent class. He's crying, he's hammering on the projector screen, because it looked something like a door or a window. So he's tried the door, he's tried the window, so he's now hammering on the projector screen, thinking, that maybe he can get out through there. Not to happen. So that was a really awful episode. I think it was a really shocking event. And of course, post that, I mean, we needed to figure out what was happening. And leaving aside the question of what happened at school and how the school handled the situation, it's all about inclusivity, awareness, sensitivity, empathy. Unfortunately, lacking. But anyway, so we took Krishna for a diagnosis, and then after about 5 days of assessment and so on, the doctors told us that yes, he is on the autistic spectrum,
Right.
and he would be able to go to a mainstream school, but he needed a shadow teacher to support him through the classes. That's where my journey actually began on this autism path. It's a very rude initiation, I think, very shocking initiation.
Mhm.
Plus, Krishna's story has developed a bit more from there because his first regression, he had actually regressed and lost certain skills, and that was where we took the diagnosis, and he was diagnosed to be mildly autistic. So,
Okay.
able to go to mainstream school with the support of a shadow teacher. Slowly, the regressions progressed till today. He's 12 now. He's
Mhm.
profoundly autistic and he has lost a lot of skills. He has lost speech, toileting skills, writing skills, and a lot of who he was at 4. So today he goes only for therapy. It's never only therapy for him because therapy again is a whole new world where he's, you know, trying to relearn whatever it is that he lost and
Right.
getting back to himself. So this journey of Krishna's has shaped me, obviously, as a parent, as a person advocating for autism awareness, and as a coach, a life coach for other parents whose children have been diagnosed to be on the spectrum, and they are struggling with the shock, the grief, and the sheer, inability not to know how to move forward. What is it that they can do for their children? So that's where I am today. A very long-winded answer.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, there's a lot to go. And autism is fairly like very new of a concept. I must say that is still like bring brought to our kind of nation. It was very acceptable each and everywhere, but right now people are like getting more to know about it. And I think that's where you play a very important role to actually come here and, talk about your son and share his journey and like talk more about it on how other parents can also embrace it, like, in the best way possible. Yeah. This brings me to my next
Mhm.
question. Like, what do you think of when you think of inclusion and belonging? What would your take be on it?
It begins at home, always. Always it begins at home, obviously, because that is where the child spends the maximum amount of time, right? With his or her, with her parents, family, friends, neighbors. So that's where it begins. And that, I think, is the initial threshold that needs to be crossed.
Mhm.
Because when the doctors told me Krishna was is autistic rather, I mean, it was like, see, I am fairly well educated and I'm aware of what's happening. And I was like, autism? You mean like Dustin Hoffman and Rain Man? Because my generation, that's all I knew about autism. So it was like, yeah, there are these kids and they have issues in certain aspects of life, but they're brilliant at math, or they're great musicians, or they'll paint beautifully. And then you move on with life. So you've slotted autism into a tiny little box,
Right.
pretty much wildly inaccurate because, of course, there are some people who present that way and so many others who don't. So, this, lack of awareness. So, on part of the parents, on part of family, this is where the initial threshold lies, and this is where it needs to be crossed first. And of
Right.
course, the next step is in play school, in the community, in parks, in playgrounds, mall, anywhere else that the child and their family, might step out. So, all of these aspects, every aspect of life is, falls under the purview of inclusion. And then, of course, comes the question what inclusion really is. But it begins at home, definitely.
Definitely. And like it definitely begins at home, but for sure it's like an umbrella that like everybody's part of it at the same time,
Exactly.
right? That's
Exactly.
amazing. Yeah. I would like to ask you also, like, how do you coach parents? Since you mentioned that you are also a life coach, how would you coach parents, and what are some of the successes that you've seen and the challenges that you faced?
The the parents who come to me, each parent is struggling with their own issues, with their own aspect of, how to manage, how to accept. And it's beyond acceptance. I think, at least I've been lucky in my clients till now that most of the parents who come, they don't have an issue with the fact that their child is autistic. They have an issue with the fact that they don't know how to proceed.
Right.
What is it that they need to do? How is it that they need to go about it? And while they are doing all of this, there is a lot of burden on the parent, as a caregiver for their child, managing their own relationships, managing the rest of the family. So, how is it that they manage all of this and, you know, come out, not even come out, how is it that they continue on this journey with their child with some sense of their own identity and their own self-love,
That's
right?
true.
So, not losing everything in the caregiver aspect
Mm,
and and not ignoring their child, not even ignoring, but not losing out on opportunities for their child or uh, places where the child can get more enabled, can learn skills, can adapt better to society, can fit in better in society, whether it's their classroom, their friends in the community,
right.
or therapy center, all of these aspects. So the challenges, the second part of your question was about challenges.
Yes.
The
Challenge.
challenges have been actually not many, surprisingly,
Yeah.
because once once that clarity of thinking, that clarity of purpose sets in, it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty easy for the parent to chart their own way. So all I need to do is to, help them along, given that, I'm a few years ahead of the parents that I coach usually.
Okay.
So it's like they have newly diagnosed children or children who've been 4 or 5 years into the diagnosis. I have got 8 to 10 years on them. So
Got it.
that way, I'm walking a little in front on the same path. So I can help them because of my experience and what I've already faced. So that's the way it's been, and I'm really happy to share that it's it's not a challenge. It's more like how do I go ahead with my own life, even if it's actually nothing directly related to my child that I'm asking about. It could be something with family. It could be how to, handle workplace commitments. But everything stems from the fact that you're an autism parent and
Right.
things that happen to you because of that. So
Mm,
that's been my experience till now.
that's really deep. Yeah. Mhm. And how do you facilitate inclusion? How could we make our schools and more inclusive? Any advice for the educators, therapists out there?
A lot of awareness, absolutely a lot of awareness. And that cliched sentence that you've seen one autistic child, then you've seen only one autistic child. Because it is true, they all present so very differently. So, what is it that I have to share with educators and with schools? Mm, Let me share a story at this point. This is Krishna's story. So, when he was about 5, I put him in an inclusive school here, and they had an NIOS section and they had the regular schooling section. Initially, the school had the special needs children also in the same classroom,
Okay.
and then they split the classes themselves from a very practical perspective because the special needs children really needed, more attention, more one-on-one attention, more help, more support.
Right.
And the mainstream school children, the neurotypical children, did not need that much. They could be taken along much faster. And plus, of course, financial constraints. It'll be greater for the NT children if they too, had such individualized attention and support, like a 5:1 ratio, student to teacher ratio.
Right.
Not happening surely because we don't have the teachers and the finances. But anyway, so Krishna was in the NIOS block, and there was an integration for every, cultural activity, sports day, school day, prayers, playtime.
Mm-hmm.
All of this was where all the children came together.
Okay.
So anyway, Krishna was 5. His school got over at 12:30, and so I was taking him home. There were these older kids who were playing cricket. They were playing cricket in the school playground, and we needed to cross the playground to
Mm-hmm.
reach the gate. Now, Krishna is thrilled. He's watching them. I mean, these boys are playing. The bat is hitting the ball. They're running around screaming, generally having a gala time. And he got bugged. This is for about 2 minutes. That's his attention span. And then he was very slowly crossing.
Mm-hmm.
Two legs. He's got kuti legs. He's a small kid, and this was a big playground. So
Mm-hmm.
these boys were waiting because they didn't want the ball to hit him or me. And I was like laden with bags and stuff.
Right.
And then there's this one kid, very sweetly, he comes running across and says, Auntie, can I? And I said, can you do what? So he looks at Krishna and says, he didn't know his name. Will you come to me? He just held out his hands. This boy is very thrilled. So he leaped into this bhaiya's arms, this Anna's arms. And that kid just ran across the playground with him and he was talking something. I have no idea because I'm very slow. That kid was very fast. So I was walking and he ran across the playground. And then he set him down over there, held his hand and waited for me to reach. Then I said, thank you so much, dear. And then he said, no problem, auntie. Bye, Krishna. By that time, he knew his name was Krishna. I said, bye, Krishna. And he went off and joined his team. This is inclusion in practice.
Right. That's
This was
amazing.
just a child with no, no training or anything, empathy, common sense, and the fact that there's a little kid who is admiring them, but he cannot cross, and his attention span is also gone. I want to play. I'm not going to wait for 2 hours till the kid crosses the ground, so I'll help him. That's it. And those 5 minutes. Now, this mindset, if every child, every teacher, every IMA, every caregiver, if this kind of mindset reaches everyone, then the next step is education awareness. How do you handle a meltdown? How do you handle sensory issues, etc., etc. But this is the basis, this is the foundation. And I think that is my very best inclusion story because things worked in the school because of this mindset on everybody's part. And
Got
this
it.
is what we need in every school.
That's amazing. I love the story as well. And I love how you said that everything starts with a mindset first, and then you can go on to like training and other things. But it's very important to
Exactly.
have that right mindset and that empathy to look at somebody else's shoe and how they would feel and how to support them in the best way, best way possible, I would say. And also to whatever resources we have,
Mm,
whatever is available, right? So I think that is
exactly.
a really amazing story, and I think even I'm going to use like some mindsets from there as a team lead whenever I go to schools, because also we deal with a lot of kids who are on the um spectrum. We do get into a lot of like training and a lot of things on how to be the best at it, but I think it's so important to always set that mindset every day in the morning before we head on to our schools and give our best. So thank you so much for that. That
My
brings
pleasure.
me to my next question. What do some of these core ideas of inclusion, belonging mean to you? Does it mean like emotional safety, acceptance, or anything related to parent burnout, joy, anything of that sort?
Everything, every aspect, whatever it is that you mentioned, belonging, safety, joy, parent burnout, misery, all of these, every aspect of the human condition. So, what is it that we mean by inclusion? You need everyone of a certain group, of a certain, similar mindset, you could say. So, what do I mean by that? Let's take school. So, let's take children of class 3. Let's take
Mhm.
children of class 10. So, inclusion is where every child feels that, that space does belong to them in some way. This is irrespective of whether you're neurodiverse or a special needs child or a neurotypical child.
Right,
So, this is where, you feel that you're part of a group, you're part of a community where you've got a right to ask for something. You have responsibility to provide that same thing that you want for yourself to other people. And
right,
all of this, support each other, walk with each other. And every child's need, every parent's need, every, caregiver's need is obviously going to be different.
right.
So that basic understanding that, there are folk who are different and I'm okay with that. See, I may not need that, or I may need something very different. But
Mhm.
because someone else is a little different from me, it's not a crime. In
Definitely,
fact, it's something that you need to be understanding of and then be together in the same space. And
definitely.
that's about it, because that space itself is being denied people, right? That
Mhm.
space is being denied children. So that again, it boils down to mindset.
Right,
If this is there, then that is inclusion. So maybe in the same classroom, you have two kids playing. You have one kid, maybe reading a novel. I like that. I was the kid reading the novel. And you have another kid maybe sitting in the corner and playing with thread. And all of them are as happy or as fulfilled as they need to be.
right.
And if the kid who wants to play with the thread wants to join in with the others, they are a little welcoming. If the child who reads the storybook wants to play with the kid with the thread, then the kid with the thread understands that and says, "This is how I play." So that is, the utopia of inclusion, which may or may not happen. That's a different matter. But
I think is that part of that
yeah,
acceptance that we all as a human being come with our own flaws, with our own gains, and with our own highs and lows. And I think
mm,
we all can like celebrate that as a part of being part of the same humanity, group,
Exactly.
right? So yeah,
Exactly.
that is so important.
It's absolutely.
Definitely. Thank you so much. This brings me to my second last question. How do you balance
Mhm.
the neurotypical world versus your own child's while creating inclusion?
Very frankly, as a parent, I'm not worried too much about balancing the neurotypical child because not even child, the neurotypical world,
Yeah,
because my entire focus is on Krishna.
right.
So, especially today when he's profoundly autistic, so he does not have an interaction with the neurotypical world on a daily basis to the level that a child with lesser support needs would have. He was having this interaction when he was 5. So, for example, that story which I told you from his school.
Yeah.
So, I have a lot of gratitude that I found that school, and then Krishna had had an entire year, there before the pandemic shut down, actually. So he
Oh,
had an entire year over there to interact with such lovely people, I would say. Such lovely people, be they the students or the teachers, anybody. So I did not really have trouble in balancing the neurotypical world versus Krishna's needs. And because I do hear stories, especially from friends, from other parents, about how difficult it is to manage, to balance in a community. Like, for example, your residential society, see your apartment block. So
yeah.
yeah, the kids are there, the neighbors are there, your kid is having a meltdown, people are knocking on your door and saying, "Can't you control your kid?" Excuse me, I can't. So I
Definitely.
would say that if you're a parent, then your primary focus is on your child. So the balance that you have, the balance that you need from the neurotypical world would be, really advocating for your child and needing accommodation from the neurotypical world. If you're a if you're an educator, if you're an otherwise an unrelated caregiver, let's say, like someone who's babysitting or something. So in that from those people, from that perspective, rather, from that point of view, then there is little more balance, perhaps. So there you do try to also, teach and explain to the child what they can do, perhaps. You teach and explain the neurotypical world too, what they need to give, what they need to, accommodate,
Right.
because it costs them much, much less than it costs the child on the spectrum.
Definitely.
It just boils down to that because if I can not scream so loudly and that helps my friend who has sensory issues, why can't I do it? It doesn't bother me that much. It costs me very little to,
Hmm.
let's say, tone down my volume. It costs that other child who has sensory issues a lot, or rather they cannot do it. Perhaps they're not capable of controlling it when the auditory stimulus becomes too much, and that may lead to a meltdown.
Right.
Not so for the neurotypical world, right? So this, it's not that why should I keep giving and why should they keep asking. It's not that. It's more like whose tolerance limit is going to be broken so
Definitely.
that it leads to serious consequences for that person. So that's about it. It doesn't cost me much. So why would I not help? Of course I would help, but I need to understand that first, right?
Right.
So I need to know that they're not simply making the neurotypical world is not making unreasonable demands when they understand. So getting that understanding into place is the biggest challenge, I would say. The
Yeah,
understanding and the awareness.
that's true. Yeah. Talking about this, actually, even I've had situations for myself. So I'm also behavior therapist, and I also mentioned that I'm a team lead. So when I go to my
Mhm.
schools, of course, we want the best for our kids that we work with. We want them to have supports. We want them to have like all the basic you know assessments, but at the same time we do acknowledge the fact that we work with the low income schools. Over there parents have their own hard hardships and things to do, and it's a lot about they do live in like packed societies where they are always like questionable to things and everything. So like
Mm,
we
mm,
always miss on the part of that kind of parent training, and where we can actually help them go from a very denial mode to actually a more like an acceptance mode. So like could you
mm.
give me some tips of how could I bring that change in them, or like even like even to start with, even for us to help them to give that, support,
Hmm.
because they usually do not like the support, and they always are like, maybe no, maybe because the society would laugh at my child. So even to train them on that kind
Hmm.
of mindset is like really hard. So some tips from
Hmm.
for me going forward in the field.
What you said is the most critical, like the parents are not very willing because they're scared. The stigma, everyone will laugh at me and they'll say that, I mean, what's wrong with your child? You can't even have a normal child, so what's wrong with you?
Right.
That is the implied question that comes in. So that is very difficult to overcome. That is very challenging to overcome. And the first step to that, to overcoming this, is to make the parent themselves understand that their child is not doing something on purpose. All right.
Yeah.
It's like the child's meltdown, the child's behavior issues, they're not because they're being naughty or they're being unmanageable, that they have a problem. So how is it that you make the parent understand this? Uh, Telling them is not sufficient
Definitely.
because telling really doesn't help. So you need to talk about, you need to give them a story, you need to give them an example. Now, when I talk to my, it's a slightly different context, but I think you'll be able to draw the analogy. So when I talk to my parents about, within the parent community that I'm familiar with, especially,
Mhm.
there are children who have, different responses to different therapies, right? So one kid responded so beautifully to OT, let's say, and to the other kid, occupational therapy really didn't make any difference. So the parent will wonder, why am I wasting my time and money and effort on this? Or they will wonder, have I gone to the wrong therapist? Why is my child not showing improvement? Is my child not showing improvement deliberately? Are they playing hooky from OT? All of this is also possible sometimes.
Definitely, yeah.
So my favorite example is that of a headache. Say, let's say five of us have a headache. I have a headache, you have a headache, XYZ has a headache. My headache is because I'm short-sighted. My
Mhm.
power has changed, and therefore my head is aching. You have a headache, let's say, because your BP has risen.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
so you have high BP and you don't notice the
Mhm. Sorry, ma'am, I can't hear you.
flower there.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, no,
So
that.
another person, let's say, has has migraine headache.
Mhm.
So that is of some kind of nervous origin. Yet another person has severe constipation, so they have a headache. So all of us, we all go to the doctor and say, Doctor, doctor, we have headache. What is the doctor going to do? Because this is a common situation, this is a common enough condition which has been really studied. So the doctor will figure out that for me it's because of myopia, I'm short-sighted. The other person, their BP has gone up. This person has constipation, that person has a migraine, and so on. So different causes, same symptom, different solutions. I need to get my eyes checked. The constipation person needs a treatment for constipation. The BP person needs BP tablets, and so on, right? With autism, that's not the case. Now, tell the
Mhm.
parent, let's say your head is throbbing crazily, horrible sar dard hai aapko.
Hmm.
And you don't know how to tell because you don't have words for it. If you ask me to explain my headache, it's not going to be the same as the other person's headache, right? So
Definitely.
maybe I have a drilling pain here, and for that other person, it's throbbing throughout. Maybe
Definitely.
movement doesn't matter to me. I can move around, but my headache stays constant. The
Hmm.
other person, if they stay still, it's fine. If they move their head this way, it's like, it'll explode. There is that much of pain. So they are not able to explain it. So you've got a headache like that. You're not able to explain it. You're just uncomfortable, let's say. And then someone is coming and either screaming in your ear or demands that you get up and run a race or, wants you to recite poetry or something. How will you do it? You can't. You can't function because you're in pain like that. So what will you do? You will tell them that I am not well. I'm sick. I have a pain in my head. Therefore, I can't do this. The other person will understand. You don't know how to tell. What will you do? You'll cry, you'll scream,
Yeah.
you'll throw a plate maybe, or maybe you'll just sit like this. You'll
Mhm.
stop responding to the other person. The other person doesn't understand and thinks you're being evil. So all of this happens because the child is not able to communicate to you, even if they have words. Even if they have words, even a neurotypical child, a young child, for example, will many times find it difficult to tell what is wrong. Mummy,
Definitely.
dard ho rahi hai.
Hmm.
Where is this pain happening? I don't know. But
Right.
at least the mother knows it's pain, and the child doesn't know where the pain is. Your
Correct.
autistic child can't even say that.
True.
And then you don't know that, and therefore you have certain expectations which are not met. And this is the whole issue. When you're struggling like this, don't expect your person to, have any better understanding. They
Definitely.
will only, laugh and giggle and point fingers or yell at you or fight, and all that is going to happen. Of course, that is stress on you. Is it easy? It is not. Is it easy for the parent to handle this? Of course not. Just push it aside because you've got so many problems. You look at the first problem. That's it. And the first problem is how to manage your child, how to handle your child, how to manage yourself. Because
Hmm.
this is not easy. You're going to get exhausted. To top up all your work, your normal work, your household work, your whatever you're doing to earn a living, managing your kid, and then your neighbors are yelling and screaming, or whatever it is, the load on you is enormous. So you handle your child and then you see how you can handle yourself. See
Def-
how you can ask for help. See how you can tell people. Someone listens, someone doesn't. See if you can ignore the person who doesn't. See if the person who listens to you can support you in any other way. So these are all the aspects. So maybe any one story that they shared with you, if you can, offer even a pathway solution, then the parent will become more ready to, open up, get trained, understand
Definitely.
what's happening with their child,
Mhm.
and maybe the step will so the first step would already have been taken, and you can take it forward from there.
Definitely. Thank you so, so much. I think this is an amazing example of how to get that thought in, because I think
Hmm.
that itself is like the seed that you plant in, and then that could grow into a beautiful tree. So, like, definitely, thank you so much. I hear that there's a lot of things that we first have to work on our mindset, and then everything else comes into place. And I think that's really, really beautiful. I really hope you inspire so, so, so many parents like you always do. And I really, really wish you all the best. But I would also like to ask you one last thing, that if you would want to share anything that you would like at this point.
I think it's a very, very difficult journey
Yeah.
as an autism parent, and I think that it's also very beautiful. It is very rewarding.
Hmm.
Not that your child maybe has not much progress today, and maybe 20 years later they became a Nobel Prize winning poet, or they won something, I don't know, position for mathematics or something. Not at all necessary. Perhaps your nonverbal child today continues to be a nonverbal teenager and a nonverbal adult. But there are many beautiful moments of joy in between, small steps, like maybe your kid took your hand and then pointed at something that they wanted.
Yeah.
Maybe some other child has done that when they were 3 months old or 6 months old, and your child is doing it when they're 16 years old. That very
Yeah.
difficulty in reaching that small step is amazingly beautiful. It is joyous. Someone else listening to your story will say, "Huh, why are you jumping up and down for such a trivial thing?" You know it's not trivial. So when you reach that point, it is beautiful. It
Right.
is really lovely. And the very last thing I'd like to say before we wind up is it is very difficult to understand an experience unless you're yourself in the experience.
Right.
So, no matter how much someone tells you, no matter how much you try to understand, you might find that gap. And this is true for anybody. Whether it's a person completely unknowing of special needs children or autism and all that, or if it's of a parent who understands quite a lot but still does not know the exact experience of their child. So, there is always that gap. And we need to keep reminding ourselves and society at large that that gap exists and to trust that it exists because the other person is undergoing an experience that you can't possibly fathom. So let's give them the respect and the space for that. And
Right.
let's do what we can, what is within our capability to
Definitely.
support.
Thank you so
That's about
much.
it.
Thank you so much. I think you've said it so beautifully, and I think we as a person also can take these learnings, even though we are not like parents, but we are still in the field, and these are very important learnings that we can take forward. Especially, I love how you spoke about, how those small acts can also make a big change. You don't really have to be trained, but as long as you can see the person and you can like like get that help and support that is needed for the person, I think even that is like very beautiful sign of like trying to help and trying to make the person feel belonged and part of the society.
very
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much, Alicia. It's been a pleasure talking to you here.
It's been a pleasure talking to you as well, and I hope the very best for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
You too. Tata. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you everybody for joining in. Thank you.